must note that we're not champions by title, but we are champions by character and behavior. And if it is that we bear such a title, we want to ensure that our actions are aligned. So I'm truly pleased that you have taken the time to be here this afternoon. I can see that you truly have your students' best interests at heart. So I really am pleased. Just relax, enjoy the session, and see how best you can take what has been shared today, that you can put it into practice in your school and your day-to-day lives. Thank you and all the best to you. Back over to the team who will now share with you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Edgel. And as customary, we will have an icebreaker activity. So teachers, please prepare yourself to participate. All right, so the activity that we'll do for icebreaker for this session would be the very same activity that was done last week, and we didn't get a chance to go through it, right, in the extension activity of last week. So as you see the activity there, it says use your answers to guide you to the end. And let me just inform us of certain rules before we start the activity. All right, so there are 4 rounds of items as indicated by the color, of which is shown in the green box labeled A. So let me just go ahead. So in the green box labeled A, right here, okay, the other items will appear every 10-second interval. The path that you take should only be in relation to the items in the boxes. So I hope that you understand that so far, because I'm going to time you, and for you in blue here, after 10 seconds, you'll see some new items appear, and you should know that you'll start with A. So I want you to put your answers in the chat, and how you will do it is that you'll start with A. Let's say that you would have gone.
Excuse me, Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Just sorry to interject, but I'm seeing a few persons indicating in the chat that they're not seeing this screen. They're seeing your name, but they're not seeing the screen at this time.
They're not seeing.
And there is also a raised hand.
Are you able to see the screen?
No, I am seeing. I am wondering if there needs to be some adjustments on their devices.
Okay. Okay. Yes, probably there need to be some form of adjustment. But let me just go again. All right, so I don't know if you are able to see. What I can do is just to share my screen again. Let me just do it one more time, please. Please forgive me. All right, sharing again. Are you able to see? No? All right, so hope that you are able to see. So you will put, the first person to put the correct answer in the chat wins. So this is a timed activity. So for example, if you should start from A and you should go horizontally across to D and then go down vertically to L to the finish, you would put in the chat A, B, C, D, H, L. All right, so that's how you would put it in the chat. Are we ready, teachers? I hope so. So, all right, so everybody should know that you're starting with A. So let's go. 10 seconds to move on. Select your pathway, move on to another box. All right, go again, 10 seconds again. All right, 10 seconds again. So let's see who is the first person to put the correct answer in the chat.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, I see Mr. Douglas Francis.
Yes.
So he has posted A, B, F, J, K, L.
A, B, F.
A, B, F, J,
Okay.
K, L. And
All
I
right.
also want to acknowledge that I think Mr. Larmond, his hand is raised.
Okay, Mr.
Okay.
Larman. Okay, so still waiting on some responses. Mr. Larman wants to give his orally.
There are some other responses coming in the chat as well, sir.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's hear them. I still haven't heard the correct part yet, you know.
Okay.
Yes.
So I have Miss Vanessa Allison, who says A, B, C, F, J, K, L. And Mr. Mitchell, A, E, F, G, K, L. And I have Miss Rowe, who would have said A, B, C, F, J, K, L. That would have been the same as Miss Vanessa. And Miss Borrell, A, B, C, F, J, K, G, H, L.
So that is A, B, C, F, J, K,
G, H, yes, H, L.
L. All right, so we have a winner there. Continue.
Okay, because I was just about to say there is a correction coming in.
All right, thank you, Ms. Townsend. So let's go through quickly. So we start with A. All right, so which is a like term to negative 3x. So we're looking at the variable, so it's 1/2 x, so we know we go to B. So from B, which is an unlike term of 8q, all right, we look at the variable again, and we move to C. All right, from C, it says 8D, 4D plus 8D, that gives us 12D. All right, we have some other options here, but they are not correct, all right? And the 12B was there on purpose, all right, for the students to be precise. So we go to F, and then at F, it says identify the unlike term in, all right? Remember, it's what's in relation to this box. All right, so we have G, 2 G's, and we have G to the negative power 2. And so we will choose this option, go to J. And from here we have what is 2n plus 5x. And as you know, nothing has changed. So we move across to K. Here it says to simplify. This one is a tricky one, or maybe tempted to go straight to L, but obviously this is not the simplified version. So we go up here, right, to G. G now, we know that 13d cubed minus d, right, based on the options, nothing has changed. So we move over to H. Final item 15b minus 2b plus b, and that would give us 14b. So that's it. All right, thank you for participating, and we have our winner. All right, so This activity will be sent out to your teachers, so don't mind. And any questions you have, we can talk about it later. All right, Mr. Egil. All right. Mr. Egil, I see a raise hand from you, sir.
Oh, please do not mind me.
Oh, okay, okay.
All right.
So now I turn over the time to Ms. Townsend, who will go through the objective of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and thank you for that activity as well. And I see that our colleagues were well involved, and as one would have commented, it's a very good activity. So this afternoon, you know, what we really want to take you through, colleagues, is to just look at structuring how we can, so that we can improve the rate of content assimilation on the part of students when they're engaged in asynchronous learning. So we want to look at what really is asynchronous learning. So asynchronous learning, we know, is a student-centered teaching method. And we know it's student-centered because in this setting, we do not have the teacher there giving the verbal guidelines as we would in a live session. And it can occur in different times and in different spaces. All right. And we know that in our situation now, our students are in varied locations, and yet they're able to access our Google Classrooms. So the word asynchronous means not keeping time together. And really what we're looking at is that we know that ideally we would probably want our students to be in session as it is timetabled. But when we consider the true sense of asynchronous arrangement or asynchronous learning, what we want to look at is the fact that students have the ability to access the information. They are still able to demonstrate what they have learned, and they are able to communicate with classmates, and they are able to communicate with you as teachers. And quite often I would see where you teachers would have asked them to make comments and so on in the classroom. So last week we would have spent some time looking at synchronous learning. So when we look at the interaction now in asynchronous versus synchronous learning, we just want to just look at the variations that may exist in how we interact with our students. So for a synchronous session, we know that we're talking about live class, virtual class, live presentations, live chat, instant messaging, live audio, video chat, live quizzes, etc. In our asynchronous session, this is where we know we have to be posting some sort of discussion board. We have to be asking them to write comments. We would have posted quizzes. We use our emails. We use several digital documents. This is where we record our live sessions and we post it as videos. We may even record audios. We have our slides. A lot of us put PowerPoint presentations. And these slides, of course, with narration is very important. And we talk about students doing self-paced activities. So what are some considerations for asynchronous learning? And we're looking at the Google Classroom. So one of the things that we need to look at is how and when will you provide feedback? We are in the Google Classroom, we post, but what feedback would the students get? Will they be having a follow-up synchronous session? Will you add feedback features with the activities? Will you have narrated slides? How will students do their self-assessment? How will you, as a teacher, make the lessons accessible and entertaining? So this is where we want you to consider what is the nature of the videos that I'm posting. We know that to make good quality videos is very time consuming, but what is the spin-off? The spin-off is once you've done these videos, you will always have them to reuse. How will you promote higher order thinking? Because we know that the classroom itself lends itself to these multiple choice quizzes. Will we go beyond that? Will we organize our content in such a way that we're able to give projects? Will we ask questions to allow students to justify their responses? Good. And finally, how will you divide units into smaller lessons? So we know that one of the things we have to consider when we're posting is that we do not want to overwhelm our students with content. We're being mindful of the fact that they are the ones who are going to be navigating this instruction. And therefore, it needs to be put in what we like to say bite-sized portions so that they themselves are able to assimilate the content that they need to cover. So at this time, I'm going to be handing over to Mrs. Hales, who will now just take us through some best practices within our region.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend. Good afternoon, everybody. So we recognize that teachers have been doing quite a good job in terms of utilizing the Google Classroom for asynchronous lessons. So we're just going to be sharing a video clip that we have created with you about some of the best practices that teachers have been demonstrating in the region thus far. So I'm just bringing up my screen. Just give me a minute. Thank you.
Okay, so as Mrs. Hill bring up our screen, just want to remind us to remember to type our names and school in the chat. And please put your first name and your last name, because remember, you'll get a certificate for participating in this webinar.
In this video, I will be showing you how I update my class on a daily basis. So the first thing that I want to show you that I do in order to update my class and to allow my class to be more conducive to learning, and what I've done is to create my own banners. So this example of one that I've created in Google Slides was created, as you can see, in Christmas for my form room. So once you go into the classroom that you want to change the banner for, and you would click upload photo, select class theme, and it automatically changes to whatever you created. Now you can use this banner to give thoughts. You can use this banner to give headings, topics that you are going to be teaching. Also, another way that you can update your class on a daily basis now would be to update recordings. That's one way that I update my classes. So very important that you must ensure is that your classroom is very organized. So if you notice, I have headings for the different topics that I have in my classroom. So I have a heading for test and quiz, attendance, study guides and tips, games, and I have headings for whatever topic they are being taught, right? And I notice I have a heading for recording. So all of my recordings are placed there, and this makes it easy for your students to go in and access specifically what they are looking for. This is meeting record, right? So you can find all your meeting records there once you know the name of that meeting record. This is the meeting. This is the icon for the recorded meeting. Another way that I update my classes on a daily basis is to insert whatever notes, and I normally write my notes in Google Docs and upload it as material again. So I would post it under the topic, right? So the topic that I'm doing with First Formers is currently numbers. Also, I use Jamboard as my whiteboard, as my virtual whiteboard. So my more action button, which is this 3 vertical dots. Once I press it, it gives me the pop-up to download this Jamboard as a PDF document. I would upload it in the classroom again as material, right? Another way that you can update your classroom is by marking assignments as well, or even classwork. Now, I have found an extension in Google Chrome that I use to mark my assignments that is called Kami, K-A-M-I. Now, once I go into the specific document or assignment for the students, there will come up to notice to my extreme right, there is the option to grade with Kami. I would just highlight that and select the students' work, and I can do my necessary marking. All right. Now, the beauty that I love about Kami is that it also allows me to insert my signature. It also allows me to insert comments, and it also allows me to insert stickers.
Okay, so in addition to that, there are other Google Chrome extensions that are quite useful. This is another one called Equatio. I think it has a 30-day trial. So you would have access to it for that period of time, after which you would have to purchase. All right. But just showing 2 at this time that you could also utilize in your Google Classroom.
Ways I've utilized my Google Classroom outside of the classwork, the class rules, and I also add my objectives there. But one other thing that I've been using is a question of the week. I pose the question on the stream, the students place their response there, and they are rewarded with credits. Another thing that I have been doing is I have been putting up student of the week. That's the students who have completed all the work. They've been attending their classes and participating in classes. Another thing that I've done is that I have created breakout rooms, and I've been using these breakout rooms to group my students also. When I put them there, I'm also a part of them, which is quite a nice feature for them to work with. So I also share in my Google Classroom what I've placed on my board. So I've utilized my board and I share with them. There I take the pictures and I add them to my class. I also at the end of each week do a recording where I summarize the lesson that was taught and place it there for the students who have missed the live classes so that they can watch and complete the activities.
All right, so
at this time, I'm going to be sharing with you a video clip done by Mr. Douglas Francis of Sydney Pagan STEM Academy. In this video, he's going to be demonstrating briefly how you can create breakout rooms using Google Meet if utilizing extensions. Not all accounts have the feature of breakout rooms. And so if you do not have this feature, this is another option that you could utilize to be able to execute the same task.
We're going to open Google Chrome browser, and we're going to, in the search bar, type in Google Meet Breakout Rooms by Robert Hodek. And we're going to press search. And the first link that comes up will be this one. We're going to click on it. And that will take us to the Chrome Web Store, where we can get this add-on. And we click right here, we'll have Add to Chrome. We click Add to Chrome. And then it will come up right up here. You click this jigsaw puzzle looking thing, and you will see the add-on in the list of add-ons that you have. You can click the pin beside it so that it will appear right on the screen there. Alright, the next thing is, so let's close these tabs. You click on the add-on. Alright, so you click on the add-on. After you click on the add-on, you go to courses. You press the plus button here to create a course, and you see here I already have a course created called 7H Math. And then when you create the course, you press save, this blue icon here. Then you go back to the Rooms tab, and when you go back to the Rooms tab, you're going to select the course that you just created. So I just created 7H Math, and then I'm going to press this plus button here. So I'm going to create 2 rooms. So you see the rooms come down here. I'm going to call this 1, and I'm going to call this one 2. So now you press save again, and the rooms will generate some links. So next you go back up now to Meet, the Meet tab, and you're going to go to Start a Class. You're going to select your course right here. The course is selected 7H Math. And next, you see the amount of breakout rooms that you have right here, which is 2. And then you're going to press this button, which says Open/Sync Both. And when you do that, it will automatically open up some windows on the computer. So here we have 2 breakout rooms that I just created. Now, with this way of doing it, it's not like the regular Google Meets breakout room. With this way of doing it, you will have to send these codes that was created in the Rooms tab to the individuals who you want to join each room. Or you can, in the main, where everybody will be, send the links and tell which students to click which link in order for this to work. Because breakout rooms are only available on the paid versions of G Suite, and it's not all of them either. It's a few of them, the bigger ones, the Enterprise Plus, and so on. So this is just an alternative for us.
Okay, kindly pause, Mrs. Ills. I see a hand raised from Sandra Witter. I'm going to allow her to talk now. You may go ahead, Sandra Witter. Do you have a question or comment? Okay. All right, so you may go ahead, Mrs. Sales.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, so these are just some of the ideas that you can take with you as you work with your Google Classroom asynchronously, and I'm sure you'll find them useful. I now hand back to Mr.
Okay, so while Ms. Townsend prepared to present, I just noticed when you're typing your names, please ensure that you didn't make a typo, okay? Because remember, we are going to use those same exact spelling on the certificates that you'll get, all right? So please check your names to ensure that you have the correct spelling.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. And now we'll just be continuing our session by delving into the lesson itself. So one of the things we would have seen so far, and that we too know as a math team, is that our teachers have a wide range of knowledge when it comes to the classroom, when we consider that you have been using it since March of last year. So you're pretty much experts in a lot of the areas and navigating a lot of the features. So we want to this afternoon just look at how we post content and how we get feedback from our students. So for today's lesson, it's an algebra lesson. It is pretty much a continuation in terms of the objectives from last week. And we are looking today at writing algebraic equations from word problems. So our specific objective is stated likewise, and we are going to be going into the classroom to continue the activities. So I'll invite a few persons to join me in the classroom. That is a class code being displayed. I see a raised hand from Miss Rose Morgan. Miss Morgan, you may go ahead. Miss Morgan? Okay. All right, so we are going to be, let me hope some of you would have grabbed that code. We are now going to be going into the classroom. All right, so our Google Classroom platform, it is not new to us. And I think that we are very much familiar with the classroom itself. And I want us to just quickly look at how we post to engage our students. So you would have already heard about your banner and all of that. So in terms of how you start, so remember that in this format, your student is not seeing you. Good. They would have just signed into the classroom. So one of the things that we need to be mindful of is the way that they're greeted. So we need to consider, how do we greet our students when they first enter? So this is just a sample of what can be written. But one of the key things we want to emphasize is that we must inform candidates, or we must inform students of what the lesson will be about, what's the nature of the lesson. We also need to provide them with some guidelines as how to navigate the lesson that they will be interacting within this structure. So we talk about what they will do first, and they are numbered here 1 through to 4. Of course, we do not know if students will be taking this route to actually enter or to actually complete the task, but we have given them some guidelines. All right, I would see a message that a code is not going through. Please note that this classroom is in a MOE Schools account, so it can be accessed at this time only by users of MOE Schools. Sorry, I should have stated that in the beginning. So this account is created in MOE Schools. So as long as you have a MOE Schools account, you will be able to access this classroom. Okay, so the first thing that the students are being asked to do, it says start today's activities by doing the quiz on variables, terms, and expressions. So we want to think about why is it that we'd probably want to start a lesson with a quiz. So we need to remember when we talk about the 5E lesson, part of what we want to do when we engage our students is to assess prior learning. We want to see, are they ready to take on the content for this lesson? So this quiz in itself will give the student an idea of where they're at, but also the teacher will be able to get some feedback as to where the students are at. So it would mean that the students will be led to now select the tab as it is labeled. Click on the link below to open the variables, terms, and expressions. You should aim for 100%. Good luck. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the tab just to take us into that quiz. Good. So when we get into the quiz, what we're seeing here is the view that will be shown to the students. So there's some instructions. I know that students by now would have been familiar with the classroom in itself. So by doing that, they are able by now to know, okay, when I do the quiz, I'm supposed to view score, etc. But just in the event that there might be that one student who has never come into the classroom and has never done anything like this, one of the things we want to make sure is that that child has some amount of guidance as to what needs to happen. Okay, so we are telling the student, one, they have more than one attempt to complete this quiz, and also how they will go about submitting. Please note, I've placed a link for the classroom in the chat, so you can also use that link to access the classroom. Then we have that they can review their questions that they have gone incorrect through feedback material, and then they're allowed to make another attempt. So this is not a one-time assessment. This is what, as we said, it's an engagement activity. And we want the students to be given the opportunity to actually go through concepts that they may not be so clear on, but by the end of it, by them getting 100%, we will be more comfortable that by now, they would be understanding these concepts a little better. So let us now look at the questions themselves. So as a follow-up, as we said, these are some of the things we expect them to know. So when we structure our questions, or when we think of writing the questions, we have to look at a question that is just going to require them to simply look at the question and pick an answer, versus a question where that will require a little more rigor, application of more reasoning. Good. So we have a question one, which speaks to Anthony buying Patty's orange and chocolate bars. And now we're asking him not to represent it algebraically, but to look at what variables could be used to represent the items that he has purchased. So remember, we're saying the quiz is on variables, terms, and expression. So Anthony, the student would go ahead and select the option. And of course, then we have another type of question, which is just looking at the expression and stating what are the terms. Good. And of course, we have a third question, which now they will have to draw on some concepts from another topic in mathematics, which is perimeter. But now they're actually putting together an expression. So we want to look, as we said, about the constructing side of our quiz now. And what is it that we want? One of the considerations we mentioned earlier is about feedback. So with an engagement where the student is not right in front of the teacher, and at the same time, this lesson might not be followed by a synchronous lesson, it is important that we use the answer key feature that is in our quiz to provide feedback to our students. So notice that what is happening is that we are allowed to score the question, whether it's a 1 point, 2 point, and I know a lot of you teachers have been doing this. But we can also provide feedback. So to correct answer, the child, of course, would get a great job. And also to incorrect answer, they will get a suggestion. So I'm just going to be checking at this time just to see if any of my teachers here have joined the classroom. Wonderful. So before I go any further, I'm just going to ask you to just take a minute and just to do that quiz for yourself. So just a minute, it's 3 questions, and I know that my teachers will want to get 100%, but for the purpose to see the true effect of the feedback, I implore you to actually try to get 1 or 2 incorrect. Okay, I am seeing that I already have 3 responses in. Thank you for participating. So we have 3 persons who have attempted our 3 little questions here so far. Okay, so I know that there may be others who at this time may be still trying to get through, but we're not going to be spending much time there in terms of, I know I will not be getting individual responses, but I would just want to hear from probably just 1 person or so. You would have gotten a question incorrect, and just to share, just raise your hand. You'd want to share the nature of the feedback that you got. Is that 1 person who will just raise their hand and share which question they got incorrect and what was the nature of the feedback? Okay, I see Mrs. Simpson, Valina Simpson.
Okay, so I got number 1 incorrect, and the feedback I got is that I should click on the video below and so would watch that video about understanding variables.
Okay, and thank you, Mrs. Simpson. So Mrs. Simpson, did you actually click on the video? Or probably not yet.
Yes, but it is here telling me that we need access, so request.
All right. Okay, sorry about that, Mrs. Simpson, but thank you. So right here, what has happened is that students would have been directed to the Google Drive folder, and the video itself is in the folder, and the instruction there would have also told them that they would double click on the video, and the title of the video is there in order to play that video, all right? Or in order to watch that video. And after doing that, they would have been allowed to exit or to stop the video, or just by closing the window. So that is just one feature. Now, to each question, you can add different feedback. So feedback may be in the sense of just writing to students. You may just want to explain the concept. It can also be in the form, as with the 3rd question, what would have been added and it would have been said to students is an audio. So what I want to show you teachers quickly is how do we add these? All right. So I know that, as I said, you have been making your quizzes before. You have been utilizing different features, but have you really been using your feedback? So a possible question could be list the like terms in the expression, and say we have our expression 4a plus 2ab minus 3A minus B. All right, and we know we change our option to a multiple choice because it's a multiple choice option, and we know this is our option A, and we have our responses for A, we have 2AB, and another thing is that normally, when we write responses, we always look at distractors, because we also put those responses that we're saying students may select. And what that does too, it gives us, of course, it will indicate to us where the misconceptions will lie. Good. So students, right here now for this question. So we have, and we're going to stop at just C there. So once we would have written our question, we could have gone to D. Then we're going to do the answer key. All right. So based on the fact that we're looking for like terms, then of course we know our correct response would be C. We do our scoring, whether it's 1 point, 2 points, and then we want to, this feature is always there, add answer feedback. So for me, I like to put in the correct answer feedback first. So something like great job, because you want them to see this when they get the question correct, once they view their score. And then the incorrect answer, what message do you want to write for the students? You may want to write, you need some more practice. And based on that, you need some more practice, then you want them to click on the link below. Now, in adding this feedback, it can be added in terms of a video. If we're using a video, we could have gone through some YouTube videos and selected a video that is suited for the question, or we could have even used URL. What I've noticed is that some of these URLs are not playable. So we have to be very careful when we're doing that. It will tell you that it's unaware or they're unable to play it in the Google Classroom. And also we have the link option. So the link option is the option that I would have used because I would have already added these videos to my classroom. And I noticed that a teacher would have highlighted using up their drive. So this video was already in the classroom for the drive. So it's very easy for me to now just copy the link to the drive and then just to paste the link. And then of course I would put the title of whatever video. So I would have named the video itself. And then, so for example, if it's just because we're looking at like terms, so I could have had a video by the title like terms. I select add, and then I save this. So this feedback, notice it would have been saved to your question and you select done. And that is it. So this in itself would allow students now to immediately be able to assess themselves. And in doing that self-assessment, if they have feedback of this nature, and then they're given the opportunity now to go back and redo the test, they are able to actually make that continuous attempt. We talk about math practice 1 being persevering. So we want them to actually develop that as part of their culture. Okay, so I do encourage you to apply this feedback to your classes, to your quizzes. And you notice, as I said, especially because this is engagement and we want to ensure that they have the basic concepts, they have the prior knowledge before they move on in the lesson. So I thank you so much, teachers. And at this time, I will hand over to Mrs. Simpson Hales, who will continue with the presentation.
All right, thank you, Ms. Townsend. Just an interjection there. So I've noted that there was a question based on the breakout rooms from Ms. Kemika Campbell. Says, after he created the codes, where do we go next? I have been trying this for months, but failed. All right, so what we will do when we're sending out our resources for this webinar, we will send the instructions to you, right? So we'll send it out to all participants if you have the same question. All right, so I'll now turn over again to Mrs. Hales.
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, so Ms. Townsend would have ably taken us through the engagement activities. And again, as we look at the classroom, this is what we have demonstrated in the stream. Again, students will not necessarily be able to interact with the teacher. So we're trying to ensure that all the activities that we have is so designed and stated in a way that students can self-pace and they can follow clearly what it is that they're supposed to do and execute to the end. So continuing with the lesson, we are now at the exploration phase, which also involves some amount of explaining. And this is the second activity, and we have labeled it as such. It's not necessary for you to identify them in the classroom as your engagement, explore, and so on. You could label them activity 1, 2, 3, etc. But for the purpose of this session, we're just highlighting for you exactly which activities we're using to target each of the E's. So this second activity is targeting them in terms of the exploration and explanation part of the 5E lesson. And again, we're trying to ensure that we're still fusing in our mathematical practices and our 4 C's and so on as well. So here it says, after completing the first activity, you are ready for the second activity. Attached, you will find a Word document with 3 tasks. Complete them in chronological order, that is task 1 through to 3. Accompanying the Word document is an annotated PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint has solutions. Please attempt the activities first before referring to the PowerPoint. However, if you're having difficulties, you may consult the PowerPoint to get the required clarification and return to the task in Word to try on your own. Now, what this is saying to the student is, you have a task to complete. You do not have the teacher with you, but the teacher has provided you with a resource that can help you in the process. But we want to ensure that you're not just looking at the answers without utilizing your mental capacity to figure it out first. So this instruction is very clear. It is saying to the student, yes, you have this task to do. If you're having any challenges, we have a backup plan for you. You can go to the video or the annotated PowerPoint and see exactly where your error is so that you can correct yourself. And then you move on with the activity. And wherever you have a challenge, you can refer back to the video. So we're just going to look briefly at the task. And I'm trusting that you're still able to see my screen, where we have 3 tasks outlined here, and the student is progressing through each task. Now we've paid careful attention to the level of difficulty of each follow-up task. So the first task is really allowing them to identify in terms of variables and so on, and identify the key components of the questions and what they should earmark in terms of answering. And the second activity requires them to look more in-depth in terms of how they can create equations from the worded statements or sentences that they have. And we're doing that again in terms of increasing the level of difficulty as they progress. And likewise for the third activity, when we get down to the third activity, this is where we're helping now we're testing to see their level of understanding of the concepts before. So now they're going to be creating sentences and they're going to be writing the equation to accompany the sentences that they create, and they could also do it vice versa. All right, so they have an equation and then they, from that equation, set up a worded phrase or sentence that would give rise, that can be, what word am I looking for? That you can actually gather from the statement that was made. All right, so we're doing this. So that is the first task. And then we're going to look briefly at the video that would have been created by the teacher. And in a few minutes, Mr. Johnson will just take us through how he was able to create this so that you can reproduce it. All right. So of course, this video is based on the task.
Greetings, students. I just want to welcome you to this segment of the lesson. And I also want to remind you of the objective that we are covering today. It is write equations to illustrate word problems. Now, it is very important that you try the activities on your own. So if you have not tried the activities, please pause this presentation and go and try now. Then return and check your answers. So at this point, you should have at least attempted task 1 on your own. So let's look at the task together.
So you should by now recognize that the video is instructing the child to say, listen, you need to do this on your own. This is just here to help you as a resource. This is not the material that is going to be teaching the child every single thing that they need to know in respect of this topic. This is a supportive video that is going to help the child wherever they fall. And the instruction is given there by the teacher in this PowerPoint. So the child knows that the teacher is saying, look, go and do this on your own. Only if you really have a difficulty and you cannot progress, then you come back here for this additional feedback. So I'll play just a little bit more of the video, and then we'll
A boy has M mangoes. He sells 4 of them. This task has 4 parts, A through to D. We'll be looking at these parts individually. So let's look at the solution to task 1, part A together. Do you know the number of mangoes the boy has? Now, from the question itself, do we have a number? Can we say it is 100, 200, 150? Do we know the number of mangoes the boy has? Now, to further illustrate this, let's look at a basket of mangoes. Here's a basket filled with mangoes, but do we know the exact number of mangoes in the basket? No, we don't. So we don't know how many mangoes there are in terms of number just yet. Now let's look at part B of the question. What letter represents the number of mangoes the boy has? From the question, we know that it is what? M represents the number of mangoes that the boy has. It represents a number that is currently unknown to us. So for those students who have not completed part C and D of task 1, please pause this presentation and return to the task. Do it on your own and then return to this presentation. Then we will continue.
All right, so you would have gotten the general idea that is being purported through this video as the teacher tries to guide the students throughout the lesson. At this point, I'm going to be inviting Mr. Johnson just to share with you the technicalities associated with setting up a video presentation such as this so that you can replicate it. Mr. Johnson.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Hale. I will now share my screen. All right. So I hope that you are able to see my screen. So you start with your PowerPoint. And of course, you can animate your PowerPoint. Then after you have done all your animation, then you're ready to annotate, right? So we're going to simulate how to annotate in PowerPoint. So you look at your ribbon here in PowerPoint and you move over to the tab Slideshow, all right? After you have selected Slideshow, you will see some options. The one that we're interested in now is called Record Slide. Now, if we select this, we are taken to another screen, and you should be able to see a preview of my video feed. All right, so let's start here. You have an icon at the bottom right of the screen, and this gives us a preview of whatever the camera is picking up. We have our icon here for video. We can enable or disenable. So we have the mic and we have the different colors. We have the highlighter feature. So as we are talking, we can use the highlighter to highlight anything on the screen. All right. Okay, we have the pen option. You would have seen me writing, right? You can erase anything that you would have written on the screen.
Johnson, if I may.
Yes.
Yes. So it is what you're showing right now, because you're sharing the PowerPoint, the participants cannot see the dialog box that you're referencing to now. So just describe the box, let them know that the box comes up and what is within the box itself. But colleagues, because of the sharing features, that pop-up icon is not being seen right now by you, just Mr. Johnson. All right, so with that knowledge, Mr. Johnson, just speak about what it is that you are seeing that they're not seeing.
All right, so let me try something first, Mr. Egil.
Okay,
Let me see if I can share that screen. Are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. All right. So let's continue. So I will say at the bottom right here, you have an icon that helps you to preview, right? If I should click it, you don't see a preview of the video feed, but once it's enabled, I'm able to see a preview. All right. So you can enable the video icon, the mic. You have different colors. If you want to use the highlighter, I use the highlighter here. You have the pen option that you can use to write anything on the screen. You have the eraser option you can use to erase. And of course, you have the laser pointer that you can use to highlight or bring person's attention to a particular area on the screen. So, of course, you have your arrow buttons that you can use to advance in the slide. You can go forward or backward, right? Going from the top left, now we have our record button. We have the stop button, the play button, once you would have recorded something. All right, so let me just try to move these things out of the way so I can see what's happening here. Okay, so here you have your notes. So if you would have created a script for yourself, you can put it in notes, all right? Or as you go, you want to type something, you have the option of doing it there. Here you have the clear button. It's a drop-down button, right? Once you click it, it will say clear recording on current slide or clear recordings on all slides. So depending on your situation, you may want to clear off all your recordings that you would have created in the PowerPoint on the slides itself, or just for the one slide. All right, so here you have your settings, and your settings speaks to your microphone and your camera. All right, so here, let's see if I can simulate, make a simulation of this. So I'm going to start record. Once I record, I'll get a countdown of 3 seconds. So here we go. Welcome, everyone. This is a simulation and how to annotate in PowerPoint. Then I can go over and stop my recording. Now, once you have done that, you have made your recording, you can exit. All right. And I know you're going to say you're not seeing my screen, so let me just go back. Let me just go back now, and hopefully you are able to see. All right. So you should be able to see now. I've come out of that dialog box and I'm back in PowerPoint, the main view. So you have your recording right here. You have the ability to move this recording anywhere on the screen. Move it out of the way of anything that you have on the screen. You can make it, you can enlarge it or reduce it to fit somewhere on your screen. So it is not stuck one place. No. So after you'd have done all the cosmetics and everything is to your liking, you want to save. You can go to save as. All right. Now, you'll give a name. But what I want to share with you, so you can save it as a PowerPoint presentation, or you have the ability to save it as MP4. Let's save it as MP4. All right. So what this means now, once it's saved as MP4, it's just like a video. So you post it anywhere and student will see you working on your screen and they'll see a picture of you. It mimics the whole YouTube, right? So that's the benefit of saving it as a video. Students can just play it. So they don't have to open a PowerPoint application. All right. So I've come to the end of this demonstration. I'll now turn over the time back to Mrs. Hales.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And I'm sure that that was very useful for our teachers. So we're going back to the classroom. And right, so we would have looked at those tasks along with the demonstration video. And so that is going to guide the students through that part of the lesson. And then to elaborate, now this is a point where you want students to utilize their knowledge sets of what they would have garnered in this lesson, in addition to some things that they would have already known. And we want to give them an experience that they will find very creative. And because they're working on their own, the tasks and activities and so on that we're giving to them must be something that can hold their attention, keep them interested, and at the same time be able to master the skills that we intend for them to master based on the objectives that we have set out to achieve. So in the elaboration stage, we're going to be looking at escape room activity. It's actually a PowerPoint activity. So let me just play this. So I'm trusting that you're able to see this PowerPoint now. No. Okay. So again, let me just verify your visibility. Are you seeing this PowerPoint now? Putting it in presentation view.
Yes,
all right, so are you familiar with the escape room activity? So let me just give an overview of what this activity involves. So it is an activity that requires students to search for clues in a particular room And in answering the clues, they will be able to exit the room. Also, they should be able to find the key. They're going to need the key in order to be able to exit the room. So what we did in setting up this particular one is that we would have posted clues in the room that students are going to be searching for. And once they would have found the questions, those are the clues for which they're going to have to save their answers. Once they have found the key, then they will need now to reproduce those answers in order to escape the room. So that's just a quick overview. So let me show you what the room looks like. So it says click around to find clues. This theme here is algebra, again, in line with what we have for a lesson. And I would have posted sensitive areas around that is going to give you some clues. So let me just look at one of them right now. I know exactly where it is. So I'm just going to click on that one in the interest of time. So it says here, this is a question. It's question 1 of 3. Martha bought 6 oranges and noticed that she has $8 left from the $20 she started with. What is the cost of an orange? Now the student will have to answer the questions correctly in order to progress. So we have different links that is going to take them to different pages. If the answer is incorrect, it says, oops, go back to the room. And of course, you're going to click on the area again. You'll get the question. You're going to select the correct answer. It says, good job. Look for the key. So you go back to the room. So you're storing your answer. So we know that the answer there would have been 2. All right. Now, this is another sensitive area that has another question. I know the answer to the question, so I'm just going to click on that to progress fully. So questions in this particular one. This is the other question. The correct answer, if I do the incorrect answer, it's going to send me back to the room. It's of course utilizing hyperlinks to different slides in the PowerPoint presentation. I know that this is the correct answer, and then it's going to take me to the key. Now, again, I just want to point out that the nature of the questions you select should, of course, reflect their knowledge sets as it relates to the concepts that they're working with. All right, this particular question, they're going to be using algebraic reasoning because they would have garnered the skills from their algebra knowledge and so on. So they're not necessarily setting up an equation or an expression, although they could, but we're also testing to see their reasoning skills and how they can manage that using algebra, their knowledge of algebra. So it says a ball bounces to an initial height of 24 centimeters. Again, we're targeting grade 7. When it is first dropped and rebounds to a half of the previous height each time, it rebounds before it stops rebounding. If the ball rebounds 4 times, what is the last rebound height? So they have to do some working out here. All right, so I'll just go ahead and click on the correct answer. Now over here, I've hidden the key. So they would have found the key. It says you found the key. Please provide the correct answer to all the questions before you are allowed to exit the room. So we click continue. The first question, I think the answer was 2. Second question, the answer would have been A. And the third question, the answer was 1.5. So it says rock, escape the room, and enter the room. All right, so that's the end of the presentation. Of course, this was done in PowerPoint and utilizing hyperlinks. So I would have created my opening page. Then this is a picture I would have downloaded from the internet of just a room. And then for each of the sensitive areas, I'm putting a text box to cover a particular space. So I put the text box in, and then I'm not writing anything in the text box, but I can hyperlink that particular text box. So I would right click, it's not coming up here, right the box. So now I would right click and go down to hyperlink. But because I have a hyperlink already there, it's telling me that my only option here is to remove. But if you did not have a hyperlink, you would see the option there right here that says hyperlink. And then I would create the hyperlink. Let me just remove this momentarily just to show you. So I'm going to create that hyperlink. That is going to, it's not clicking. But one of the key features when you're creating this hyperlink is that because all my slides are within my document, I'm going to be looking for a place in this document. So it's important to click on that, a place in this document, and then it shows you all the slides that you're able to hyperlink to in this document. And then of course, I would select the hyperlink, the slide that has the question that I want to hyperlink to, all right? And so it's just going about that, doing the different hyperlinks. So I did the key to each of these questions, and the correct answer in each of these questions would lead to the next question in terms of the key. And the correct answer in this question would lead to the next question. So you can't escape until you have answered all the questions. All right. And searching around the room, those are just for clues. So you know exactly which answer you need to provide for each of the questions in order to exit the room. So this is important because based on the questions that we select, a child will not be able to exit the room until they would have answered all the questions correctly. All right, and that also provides them with additional practice. So if their answer is incorrect, they'll have to look back to see, where did I go wrong? What did I do? And in doing that, they can also go back and look at all the notes and everything that was provided so that they can guide themselves through the answer. And you can also add music. I didn't add music for this one, but you could add music also, and that would help to enhance the experience for the child. All right, so I'm going to now move into the evaluation activity. So for this evaluation activity, of course, we did a Google form, which is basically a quiz that we want them to answer the questions. And again, we're paying keen attention to ensure that the questions that we select for our assessment is in line with what our objectives were, and also in line with the content that we have provided them with throughout this lesson. All right. Now, as you can see, it does take time to prepare all of this. So I'm saying all of this and I'm going through and I'm hearing you say, we don't have so much time in this, a whole heap of class we have. But the idea is, once you understand the concept of what we are presenting and you learn the necessary skills, you will find that as you begin to do it, it becomes easier for you to master. All right. So again, we're going through these questions similar to the first sets of idea in terms of the first engagement activity where they were given questions and feedback and so on. But one of the key things with this is that they're not going to be given instant feedback as they would have. When I say instant, in terms of the feedback sheet that would have been provided in the first engagement activity. But in this particular case, as the teacher, you now would be able to look to see what responses they would have given. Not seeing it in this version, in this way in which I have it open, but you could look back at the feedback sheet and look at the responses that students provide. Are you seeing this where I've opened the feedback responses? You can just respond so I know that you're seeing what I'm looking at.
Yes,
so in this, great. So in this response, in the responses, you can clearly see how students have progressed through. You could look at the points that they have gained. You could also look at how many students selected respective answers. And so you can guide, that can guide you in terms of how you prepare for the next lesson, because you would have targeted your responses to reflect different misconceptions. All right, so if a child selects item A, for example, answer A, for example, you would know that based on this response, these are the challenges that this child is having, and therefore I may need to review this, or I may need to have a second look at how I re-engage the students as it relates to these concepts. All right, so it's important now because the child is going to depend on you for this kind of feedback, because they would not have gotten that when they answer these questions for this final assessment. So they would have to rely on you to give feedback for this. And so this analysis is going to be very critical to you to help you to be able to navigate to see exactly where you need to target for your next class. Now, some schools are having mixed approaches in terms of delivering. So you would probably have your asynchronous days and then your synchronous days, or vice versa and so on. So you would have to decide what your next step will be. If you're continuing with an asynchronous lesson following from this lesson, then of course this is extremely critical, because you're going to have to weave this in to how you prepare for the next class, targeting these areas where you saw that students would have fell down, and prepare that as you engage them through the 5E lesson next time around. All right, so this is what we have in terms of our asynchronous approach, from our engagement activity all the way down to our evaluation activity. I apologize for my background. Right, all the way down to our evaluation activity, ensuring that we target our students and make sure that we provide them with all the things that they need to master the skills that we intend for them to master. All right, thank you so much for your attention. I now hand over the time back to Mr. Johnson.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ailes and the presenters, all the presenters today. All right, I will now continue to look at the main points, to summarize some points. So I hope that you are able to see my screen. So some key takeaways that we want you to get, teachers, is for asynchronous learning, we want you to provide some type of scaffolding for your students in the form of annotation or something that will help the students to progress throughout the task, because you're not there physically. All right. Also, provide solutions. So it's still a 5E model, right? But at each stage of the lesson, you want your student to be able to self-assess, to say, did I do this correctly? You don't want them to move on and they have some misconceptions, right? You want to ensure feedback is provided to assist student with self-assess. We mentioned that. And in posting activities, provide adequate guidelines, instructions for students. So we have come to the end of our presentation at this time. Before we go into the evaluation, just want to pause here to acknowledge any questions that you may have. You may ask now. Okay, we have a raise hand from Denise Powell. All right, can we have Miss Powell speak?
Good afternoon.
Yes, afternoon.
I'd just like to know if the ministry has something in place to say protect teachers against plagiarism in, times like these.
All right. Plagiarism, that's a very important term there. I see Mr. Edgel, you want to take this one, Mr. Edgel?
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Paul, thank you for that question at this point in time. As we transition to the virtual space, I know that there are indeed some elements that we must consider, and plagiarism is one of those areas that would have to be transitioned as we move into exploring delivery through the virtual means. So what I'll say to you now, Mrs. Powell, is given that you have highlighted it, we here as a math team will be doing some research and some investigations to ask questions to see where we stand as it pertains to plagiarism. At the same time, I will encourage you to look at some of the international as well as local laws as pertains to how we treat with the virtual property, right? So a response to that directly wouldn't come right now, but I'm pleased that you asked the question, because it's questions like these that will begin to segue us into the space where we need to be. So thank you, Ms. Powell.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your question, Ms. Powell. Thank you for your response, Mr. Edgel. There is a question asked in the chat to say if Google Form accept exponents. From our experience with it, no. So we have to use extension like Equation and other apps to help us to put it in the form, the mathematical professional form that we want in the Google Form. So the answer is no. But the trick to that is that you need an extension. Any other question?
Yes, there are some more hands. Mrs. Francis Forrest.
Okay.
Yes, sir. In addition to what the gentleman just answered, what I tend to do is take the picture. You can add the question as a picture. So when it has exponents and stuff like that, that we're not able, because sometimes equation doesn't work for me. So what I do, I take the picture and add the question as a picture at the top, like at the stem of the question. So I don't know if that will help. So instead of typing the exponent, or depending, maybe it's a Pythagoras' theorem, maybe it's some trig something or a circle geometry question, we can put it there. So what I do, I add it as a picture in the Google form.
All
and
right.
then I have my answers down the bottom.
Yes, yes, exactly so. Thank you very much, Mrs. Forrest, for pointing out that.
Yeah, man. You're welcome.
All right. So we have.
So just a point, Mr. Johnson. So you would have, just for clarity, Mr. Johnson, if I may.
Yes, Mrs. Hales, go ahead.
Okay. Right. So I'm just checking to see, you would have typed it, for example, in Microsoft Word, and then take the picture and then insert. Okay.
Yes, you can do that. Right. Okay. And raise from Rose Morgan, but it has been lowered. Not seeing the raise and again. All right. Any other question in the chat? Okay, the evaluation. All right, so we have for those who have QR code scanner, can go ahead and use your QR code scanner to scan, and the link will be placed in the chat shortly. Okay,
Hello?
Rose Morgan, you ready?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I came in a bit late, so I was wondering the whole presentation, if it's available after.
Yes, like all our presentation, we try to send out a video recording first, and then we would send out the supporting material at a time, later in time.
Later in time?
Yes, shortly. Because we just compile everything, we just make sure that everything is okay, and then we'll send it.
Thanks.
Right, but you would have the recording in short order. All right, do we have any other question? All right.
There are some questions in the chat, Mr. Johnson. Teacher says, I'm using Kami to mark students' work. However, mine will expire this month. So does the ministry have any other extension we can use?
All right, you can go ahead and answer that one, Ms. Cecils.
All right, so we do not have knowledge of all the extensions, but you could always try Google Chrome, where you just go and type extensions for, and you could state what it is you're looking for an extension to do. So mark students' work and so on. And you should be able to see a few lists listed there where you could try out. All right. But outside of the ones that we have shared here, I'm not sure of the others that exist. But a search can definitely help. All right. All right. I'm sure the evaluation link will be posted in the chat shortly for those who are not able to scan the code. So just stand by for that. A question, it's a question. It says prize for engage activity. Thinking you're perhaps referring to the first activity that students were taken through in this asynchronous lesson. A prize, you know, it would not be a physical prize, but yes, the idea of a digital certificate or a digital trophy or so on could also be explored to help to motivate students. Back to you, Mr. John.
All right. So if that's all the questions for now, is there, I see one more. All right. So one more. I keep getting disconnected in Zoom. Why don't we use Google Meet for these meetings? Yes, we would love to use Google Meet, but based on the number of teachers in the region, we foresaw that we would have a group over 100 participants. And we realized for the Google Meet accounts that we have a limitation of 100 participants. Hence, we chose to use Zoom for these meetings. So ideally, because we're dealing with, you know, a lot of things that we present, it's in Google Meet, and we would have loved to just use the Google Classroom, would have loved to use the Google Meet, but we thought about the capacity, and that's the case why we resort to using Zoom. All right, so now I'm going to turn over the time to our regional coordinator, Mr. Edgel, to bring his closing remarks.
All right, so good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me just start off this afternoon by saying thank you to the presenters from the Region 5 mathematics team who would have so ably led us through this session this afternoon. I really hope, colleagues, that we would have learned something new or would have had some concepts reinforced. We know that the time that we're in with COVID, right, has really caused us to shift our focus from face-to-face engagement, and we are now in a place where we have to engage students virtually, be it synchronous or asynchronously. And we know that most of this is new to us, and because it is new to us, it's very important that we engage in continuous professional development. The Region 5 mathematics team saw this fitting for us to conduct at this point in time, and I really hope that this session would have been impactful for you. Now, colleagues, I want you just to remember that we are indeed a part of the region of champions, and even though the time that we're in is really a difficult time as it pertains to engagement, we want to ensure that we hold that banner high. We ensure that at all times we keep at the forefront of our minds that our students are the ones we are here to serve. So as we embark in this time, trying to pioneer this mode of engagement called online engagement itself, we want to ensure that we upskill ourselves, we do the research and practice, and I hope that you will share the resources that you have garnered today with your colleagues so that your department, your school can grow. All the best to you. We will be sharing the recording by the end of the day, and then the additional resources will follow. We'll also be preparing our certificates, a digital certificate for you all. So all the best, and thank you again for coming out this afternoon. It is really good when I see you make the effort to be here in these sessions. We will continue to have sessions, but as it is right now, this is the last session for the term regionally. We will continue with our regional sessions come term 3. Once more, thank you all for coming, and all the best to you and to your students as you engage them.